Hi, everyone. My name is Liam Dow. I'm a graduate student researcher at UCSB. And today we have with us Brian Pizzuti, who's an engineer at Merck, and he's willing to give us his time today here in these biotech talks to tell us about his overall research interests, what he does at Merck, as well as what Merck is doing right now during the coronavirus pandemic. So with that, thanks for coming on, Brian. When did you start working for Merck?
So I started in September of 2018 as like a biotechnician. So I was doing like shop floor work, supporting the production of the hepatitis B vaccine. And I did that for about a year. And then in November of 2019, I switched to my current role as an engineer, and I support deviation management for varicella bulk, which is the chickenpox vaccine. And deviation management is just like managing quality issue generation. So anything that impacts the quality of the batch that we produce, that's my job to kind of like make sure that everything stays compliant.
Nice, nice. That's definitely an important role.
I like to think so.
So then, what does a typical day look like for you? Can you give us a daily rundown of your routine previous to the pandemic, and then maybe what it's looking like right now?
Yeah. So I mean, I have like early meetings, so I'll like get into work around 8 at the latest, and then I go and I meet with kind of like operations on the shop floor, and we like discuss what things are happening that day on the like in operations, like what specific products we're filling, and we make like I'm calling them different products, but it's basically just different parts of the process that are kind of segregated. So we'll discuss how we're filling each and every portion of that part of the batch. And we'll also discuss any outstanding quality issues that we have, because that's my job is to take care of those. And then we have like some more discussions with operations later in the day, mostly about deviations. And then it's after that, it's just kind of like writing and investigating until our afternoon meeting. And a lot of my job is writing. So I'm constantly writing reports, trying to show and like to quality and operations that our product impact is very either minimal or significant enough to discard. So we have to like kind of gather the evidence and make that decision, or write up a report so someone else can make the decision. Mm-hmm. But we do a lot of it, data gathering, from interviewing technicians to just reading through documentation that supports like our general practices that would kind of mitigate any failures in our defenses. So do a lot of that kind of thing. And then after our afternoon meeting, it's just more writing and investigating. And then we have another discussion with operations in the later half of the day to support like second shift people that are coming in, because we have 3 different shifts, because we're a 24-hour operation.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like communication is a key part of what you do.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces to manufacturing. So we have a lot of meetings to make sure that we're constantly communicating. And now that the pandemic has hit, obviously we're not all on site at all times. So we've been doing a lot of WebEx meetings, and it's been a little bit of a struggle because connection doesn't always work in our favor, but we've had a lot of success with setting up those meetings and getting people to talk to us and keep us informed about everything that's happening. So we've been able to stay kind of at home, at least us, the engineers, have been able to stay at home and like remote call in and do a lot of investigating that way. Because a lot of our job is writing, but we have been able to keep up on investigating because we can talk to people like that. But
that's nice. Yeah. And yeah. How big are these meetings usually? Are they like very big, or are they small enough where everyone has maybe a larger role?
It depends, but a lot of the routine meetings are pretty small, where we'll have like a couple of reps from each area come in. So um, I'm like a rep for my area when it comes to the one of the operations meetings with like the director of operations, and like kind of reps from all of the different areas. We all meet and like kind of discuss like all of the issues we're having, if we need to escalate any issues from the lower meetings. So we have a lot of those type of like tier kind of hierarchical meetings where we can escalate things up as if like the issue is big enough. It's a high visibility quality issue, for example, we'll have to like escalate that to various tiers of the like meeting
Mm-hmm.
tiers, and have like sometimes the vice president of vaccines will have to look at the issue. It's but basically it just depends on what type of meeting it is. Like if it's the early morning operations meeting, it's usually just me and like three other people all from a couple different areas. But and then we have our like local team meetings, staff meetings, and those are generally pretty small, one or two teams. So that's like 15 people. But
Okay. Wow. Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of
yeah,
coordination, and yeah, like I said before, communication is important as well as a lot of
absolutely.
writing. Yeah. So, from what I understand, you did your undergrad at Lehigh University, where you majored in bioengineering. Uh, how do you think that that education, as well as other experiences that you had, prepared you for what you do today?
Oh man, how'd you know Lehigh? Jeez. Um, but I think it prepared me pretty well. Like uh, writing, like the technical writing mindset was definitely something I got just from being an engineer. Like just having to think about all of the different questions you are going to be asked and have to answer just to make your argument sound. And the way you go about answering it too is super important. Make sure that your reader can follow along, um, and just really like make sure that it's concise, but still explains everything and doesn't leave any like desirable questions. Um, I think the best part of that education was definitely the analytical thinking, because thinking analytically to try to solve these problems we have, if we don't have like concrete evidence of something, being able to like think around that and find a way to leverage some program or some documentation we have to support that our product is safe is always a good mindset to have. And we always try to support product impact, but of course, we can't assume that it's safe until we prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. But
Hmm. Absolutely.
definitely analytical thinking coming from an engineering education background is very, very helpful.
And it also sounds like just being able to have that thinking in a team environment where maybe you
Yeah,
can convey that analytical thinking to other people, and you want them to believe you and to see your point of view.
yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
The other thing is, I mean, I know I dreaded going and doing the senior capstone project sometimes with some of the things they made us do, but um, the way they taught us like organization and like meeting deadlines and writing those weekly reports, like that's literally what I'm doing now. And using Gantt charts, like we don't use Gantt charts. That's something we had to do in the capstone, but using organizational tools similar to that is something important to managing all of these investigations and incidents we get and have to work on and communicate to various different people the statuses of that, tracking people down, trying to get updates on certain investigations, um, like trying to
Oh
stay
yeah.
organized like that. Like
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the work that I do certainly isn't, I work within like a team as well. It might not be as like the same skill team that you are, but definitely understand how organization is really important, keeping things together, because, you might be working on like several projects at once, and
yeah,
you have to keep track of all these things. Yeah. So, um, what kind of advice would you give for undergrads right now who might be looking for jobs?
So I would say definitely, like I would say that manufacturing is definitely a great place to start out, especially if you want to do research down the line, because that's honestly where I want to end up. But manufacturing's really interesting, and you learn a lot. You just kind of like I went in as a technician, so I didn't have like all of these like administrative duties, I guess you would say I have now, but I like soaked in like all of the working parts of like manufacturing a vaccine when I soaked it in like a sponge when I went in as a tech, and that was very helpful. So I would say like start out like at the ground level and like really take everything and get that like ground floor experience, and then um, that experience is like Merck knows that it's super valuable, and so they love like taking people that started there and moving them up as engineers. The other thing is just like honestly just stay organized and prepare for your interview and really stress like your engineering experience, and I don't know, just
Mm.
it'll speak for itself, but
Oh
that's
yeah,
what I did.
absolutely. What in particular led you to Merck? Like how did you prepare to work at Merck?
um it was kind of like a it was honestly kind of just a like a job that I applied for because I saw an opening for it, and I wasn't really looking for that type of job. And then when I was like reading about it, I was like, huh, this sounds like a good place to start since I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Um, I was like, oh, like this is a good gig, and I'll learn a lot, and maybe I'll figure out what I want to do. And within like a month of being there, I knew exactly where I wanted to go.
That's nice. Yeah.
And I stuck it out for a year because they didn't recommend like moving up before you were there for a year. It was hard to like get another. It was hard to apply for jobs before you had a year of experience. It was kind of frowned upon. So after a year, I started applying, and I immediately got like a bunch of interviews, and um, I liked this one the best.
Hmm.
Yeah, like they definitely had the best team. So
Oh, well, I think it sounds like you were pretty open-minded from the beginning, which
yeah.
certainly has helped. I'm very curious to know what kind of role Merck is taking on during this pandemic.
So I'll uh, I'll pull up some helpful guidelines that because Merck has actually released some statements about what they're doing about the pandemic. But I'll speak from my experience as well because
Yeah,
obviously
that'd
I'm
be
still
great.
working. But right now, Merck is actually working on they're researching a vaccine for COVID-19, and um, there was actually a so COVID-19 is actually the disease, and the virus is SARS-CoV-2. And so SARS-CoV-1 that happened in early 2000s that pretty much stayed in China. That epidemic was actually that almost spawned a vaccine from I don't remember which pharmaceutical company it was, but a lot of that work is being leveraged to get a vaccine out for SARS-CoV-2, and I think human trials have started a little while ago. Not Merck, but a different company. But
Okay.
speaking back to Merck, they are researching um, treatments and vaccines for it. Um, and another thing, we aren't like stopping production of any of our existing vaccines either. Obviously, I'm still working. We're still meeting deadlines, and we're still producing all those important life-saving vaccines for people, because
Good.
obviously like just because COVID-19 is here does not mean that people aren't getting sick with anything else, so it's
Yeah,
just as
that's
important to
fantastic.
get that stuff out.
Hmm.
Yeah. And there are programs for people who have lost their jobs and can no longer afford medications like that, so they are offering like options for people like that. So it's like a Merck patient assistance program. Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of what you're doing right now is tailored specifically towards coronavirus-related activities within Merck, or are they similar to what you were doing before? Kind of going off that.
It's kind of like nothing has changed except that we can't really go on site as much. It's really the site restrictions that have changed, but there's no prioritizing anything related to COVID-19. That's not my area because we're just manufacturing, and until we get like a vaccine passed by the FDA, we can't large scale produce it.
It's true,
So
right?
my manufacturing is just solely on what we have licenses to produce. So it's just business as usual, other than the social distancing guidelines. So if I do go on site, I have to wear a mask, stay 6 feet from everyone. They're closing all the conference rooms, and a few of the meeting rooms that are open, you can only sit in certain spots at the table.
Mm.
They've hired like a hand sanitizer company to produce hand sanitizer for our Merck site, so we don't run out. We have like a lot of different things we're leveraging to make sure that our employees stay safe, and so that we can continue to make deadlines, because I mean our products are still very important.
Hmm.
So
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a tough balance of safety and also
yeah,
getting your work done. But I'm really happy to hear that uh, Merck is really prioritizing safety. It's great.
absolutely. Yeah, that's like our thing. Like
Hmm.
Merck is like very well known for safety. Honestly, one of the reasons why they were like the first pharmaceutical company I looked at is because of that reputation that they have. But um, I mean, I talked about how being on site, we have all those guidelines, but like if you don't have to go in, they make you stay home. And we have to check our temperature before we go on the site too. And they gave us thermometers. So
Wow.
they're like taking every precaution to make sure that that we limit exposure as much as possible.
Well, we can wrap up, but I just want to thank you so much, Brian, for
Not a
having,
problem.
for taking the time to come and talk for this biotech talk that we're having. Um, if anyone has any questions, is there a way that they can reach out to you?
Uh, yeah, you can email me. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to watch this, so I don't know if I want to give up my cell phone number, but
Just your email, your professional
yeah,
email
yeah.
is fine.
You can email me at bpez96@gmail.com. It's like my personal email because I don't want to have my work email used, but that's like my personal email that I check regularly with everything.
Great. Cool.
Yep,
All right. Well, thank you again, Brian, for having it, for coming on.
not a problem. It's good talking.
All right.